It's a special day here at the Global Book Network as we welcome back one of our most inspiring guests. Her name is Maureen Santora. Her son, Christopher Santora, was a young probationary firefighter who answered the call of duty on September 11th, 2001, putting self-preservation aside to help others in what became his first major and final fire. In the years since, Maureen has kept his legacy burning brightly through her books, through the Christopher Santora Scholarship Fund, and through a New York City public school that bears Christopher's name. She is not only the mother of a hero, but an author and educator who continues to share powerful stories of remembrance, resilience, and hope. Maureen, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Logan. It's wonderful being back with you.
It's great to have you back on this September morning. I know September 2001 was the worst day of your life. And to have you commemorate Christopher's life with me today is a real honor. And I got to tell you, September 11th had a terrible warm up this year. I think we all got a sucker punch on September 10th when
That's right.
Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Like your son, he's a young, clean-cut, Catholic, Christian young man, and taken too soon by what I feel is terrorism. I mean,
I
tell me
agree.
what your reaction was on September 10th when you woke up to that horrible news.
Well, at first I didn't believe it,
Yeah.
like on September 11th, I didn't believe that this was actually happening. And here was somebody, Kirk was a person who just wanted to find the other side and understand the other side. He was not confrontational. He was not uh, truly political. He was interested in dialogue and he was interested in conversation. And for him to be snuffed out in this very violent way is to me a sign of terrorism. And I have to say that, the last 24 years, we have not gotten a curriculum on September 11th. And there were many, many lessons that should have been taught to the people who are currently in this terrible state of mind where they think violence is the only way to go if they disagree with somebody. Uh, September 11th was a day of hatred. September 12th was a day of love. And we began loving each other, being proud to be American, coming together, even though our views might be different. We haven't taught any of these lessons to the school children. And in fact, there are, teachers and educators who have taught hate. And so that has really skewed the mindset of the young people today. And that needs to be changed. It needs to be changed immediately. And I'm hoping, that after 24 years, we will finally get a curriculum, especially in New York City, but New York State and the nation, to talk about all of the lessons that we need to talk about after 9/11. And I was just distraught that, that Charlie Kirk was murdered. He did a lot of good. And I think what's happened is like 9/11, there's going to be a boomerang because people expected everybody to fall apart. And what's happened is that the movement that he started is only going to get stronger. And these hate-filled people are going to be, in big, big trouble because most Americans will not tolerate this. This is not something that we in America tolerate. This was uncalled for, and it was really outrageous. And now his wife is without a husband, and the two little kids, when you see them, my heart breaks. They're without a father, and that's permanent. That's permanent.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think after President Trump was nearly assassinated last year, gave us hope of invincibility that
Mhm.
somehow Charlie Kirk would have survived this. I
That's right.
remember going to bed, literally praying for him that night, dreaming of him that night that he survived it, and then waking up in the morning to the news that he had died. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to coalesce decent people in this country, you know. It's strange though, after 9/11, everybody came together, everybody said it was bad, it was evil. Nowadays, if 9/11 happened again, I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure either.
I think some people would applaud it, saying, well, that's what
I
you get
agree.
for interfering in Gaza or something,
Yeah,
you
I
know?
well that
And-
that is the are the lessons that have not been taught. you
Yeah.
know, and we need to have more tolerance in this world. We
Mm.
need to appreciate other points of view without becoming violent. We need to be kinder to each other.
Yeah.
Everybody is so angry all the time, you know, like in New York City, you know, if you look at somebody wrong, well, they're ready to stab you or they're ready to hurt you. And this is crazy. This is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy,
It's
you know.
crazy. And Luigi Mangione, I believe his name is, the guy
Oh,
who shot the United Healthcare executive, two of the top charges were thrown out against him this morning.
this
I
morning, I
mean,
know,
it's
I
just
was
what kind of world are we living
flabbergasted.
in? Like I said, if 9/11 were to happen in 2024, I'm not sure there wouldn't be people out there celebrating it in the United States. I know people celebrated it around the world.
Right.
But here in the United States, I think nowadays you'd find that same um, horrible reaction. And, I don't know what's going on. I really don't. But I do think most people think like you and I do. Most people feel Charlie Kirk was a hero. And of course, your son is a hero. Tell us about how you remembered him this year, where you spent September 11th.
Well, we always go to the firehouse, you know, in
Mhm.
Christopher's firehouse, all 15 guys, Christopher being one of them, all 15 guys died. And so this firehouse lost more in a single firehouse than any other firehouse in the city. So we gather together and we get to see the families. They come each year and we get to hug them and see how they're doing and how they've, progressed in their 24 years. And it's lovely to see now grandchildren and see, some of the wives have remarried, and you're happy to see that after this length of time and, starting new lives, even though they'll never forget. And so we go to the firehouse and they have a beautiful ceremony every year. We had one of the Medal of Honor recipients speak this year, and he did such a magnificent job, you know. Military people are very humble. They never say how wonderful we are or how good they always put it on somebody else. And so he spoke about, all the firefighters and all the heroes that he thought were heroes. But of course, he was a hero as well, you know. But he did a beautiful job. And then from there, we go up to St. Patrick's Cathedral, and they have a special mass for the firefighters in the division, of New York City. And then we go down to Ground Zero. And we've done that for a number of years because I find great solace in the
Yeah.
firehouse. These are people who I know and who were close to us after September 11th, and we became friends with. And so it's like coming to a homecoming,
Yeah.
and the firemen who have retired, and all but one in the firehouse was there on September, I mean, have retired, and one is still there. He's
Mm.
going to retire the 25th anniversary, but everybody else, but they come back. So you
Mm.
get to see them as well. And it's just a beautiful day. And I'm with my whole family. And that makes a big difference,
Yeah.
big, big difference,
And there's something about the ritual or the routine of ritual that's comforting, like
That's
going to the
correct.
firehouse,
That's
going
right.
to St. Patrick's Cathedral, going to Ground Zero, and remembering Christopher. I was doing my research today before you came on the show, and it struck me that out of the nearly 3,000 people that died on 9/11, such a high percentage were firefighters.
That's
More
right.
than 10% were firefighters. When you think of that, that these were men that ran into the towers that were crumbling and burning and half destroyed. I mean, they sacrificed their lives. The other people were victims. These guys were the heroes that went in and, despite what was happening around them, it's just mind blowing that so many, it was such a large percentage were firefighters.
Well, that's when you speak to firefighters about any courageous acts, they always say, it's my job.
Mm.
They never, never say, I did a great thing or I was a
Yeah.
hero. Never, never, never say that. And it amazes me that, after all these years, that attitude has permeated to all the new guys, and in Christopher's Firehouse, there are a lot of very new firefighters who know us. We go down on a regular basis and
Mm.
celebrate Halloween, which was my son's
Oh,
favorite holiday, and we bring candy and stuff. So they know
nice.
who we are, but they're humble and there's a personality that goes with being a firefighter. My son
Mm.
has that personality. My husband
Yeah.
did as well. And they're to help people. And if they see something wrong, they're the ones that go. They're the ones
Yeah.
that stop on the street if somebody is fallen. They're the ones
Yeah.
that stop at the accident and see if they can help. I mean, it's an instinctive attitude that they
Yeah.
have. And not everybody possesses that. So, they're
Right.
a special bunch, of human
Yeah.
beings. And there were other groups, soldiers are the same way, and there are other policemen and so forth.
Mhm.
In the fire department, you have people who are servers. They're
Yeah.
servers of people, and my son thought this was the greatest job in the world. He wanted
Yeah.
this from the time he was a little boy. So I don't know, I often wonder whether or not he was fully aware that this was a fire that was going to have
Yeah.
multiple deaths. He was like a young puppy dog. He was
Yeah.
23. He was looking for a big fire. We always said, don't pray for something that you don't know what's going to
I
happen.
know.
The biggest fire, in New York City. But, he was eager and wanting to do the right thing. And I don't know whether or not he was fully aware. I know his captain who died, David Woolley was his name, knew for sure that this was going to cause a lot of deaths,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure Christopher knew. So,
Yeah.
maybe that's a good thing,
Right.
went with eagerness, and he
Right.
knew, to save. And, my memories of him are, just, that he was just a decent, wonderful, kind, maybe exasperating at times, but, you know, good person in
Yeah.
his own soul, and so I have good thoughts of him all the time. And he's with me all the time.
Oh,
He's
I'm
with
sure. I'm sure. And I was going to say that's what we sons do. We exasperate our mothers. It's just part of being the boy, the only boy. He's like me. I have three sisters, and I was the only boy in the family. And I tormented my sisters. I tormented my parents, and it's just par for the course. And it's amazing. 23 years old, though, when you were talking about I don't think at 23 years old you can conceptualize your own mortality anyway.
no,
You do
no,
feel invincible.
that's right.
And you feel all grown up at that point, but you're not. We
That's right.
felt all grown up back in 2001, and now here we are 24 years later, and we realize we weren't even grown up back then, you and me, right?
Right. And now I'm old. That's, you know what I
You're
mean?
not old.
But you know what I mean? 24 years later, you can't believe that
I
much
can't
time
believe
has
it now.
passed,
Yeah.
and
That'll
we,
become, I guess 2001 is your clock for measuring everything in your life in many
that's
ways.
right.
That's
Yes.
that's
Yes.
your reference point, right?
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So, and I've been blessed with wonderful things in my life. I'm very grateful every day I get up and say, thank you, God, for another day. Let me do something kind and good today, I only hope that the young who are so angry and so miserable and so
Mm.
unhappy find a path where they can have gratitude
Yeah.
because we live in a great place. In
Yeah,
spite
we
of all
do.
our flaws and all of our problems, we live in a great place. And there is no place like
Right.
America. No place.
No,
Yeah,
no. We have freedom. We have the most beautiful land that has everything from Arctic conditions to tropical conditions. We have great mountains. We have beautiful cities. It's the most wonderful country in the world. And, I think the last election proved that most people think like you and I do, that
yes.
we wanted a man like President Trump in office. And I think he's doing a great job
Oh,
despite these courts that are trying to tie his hands and legislators that are trying to tie his hands. And I hope he gets the message that you would like to see this curriculum about 9/11 be enacted. I think it should be across the country. I mean, we should learn about George Washington cutting down that cherry tree, and we
absolutely.
should learn about what happened when, Islamic hatred perpetrated New York City on 9/11, 2001. Your books are great. Your children's books, your book about Christopher. Tell us a little bit about your work. I see them behind you there. The Day the
Boy,
Towers Fell is one of them, of
is
course.
one of them. That was the first one I wrote because I wanted to have a story told to young children,
Yeah.
about what happened without scaring them and frightening them. Now, today you have all these crazy videos, kids are
Yeah.
much more sophisticated than I was at the same age,
Mm.
but I wanted young children to know what hatred did to everybody. and how, if we're not more tolerant and we're not more forgiving, that will continue. And so the
Mm.
message from the September, the day the towers fell, was the story of what happened to the world on September
Mm.
11th. And then my son Christopher is a tale of my son growing up and how
Mm.
he was not perfect. And it didn't matter, how much trouble he got into. He talked too much in school and he got in trouble for there. But he was a kind and good person. And no matter what he did, I loved him because he was my son. And so
Sure.
I wanted kids to know that when you are, chastised by your parents because you've done something wrong, that's their job, is to help create you into a good and kind and good citizen and a good person. And then, of course, the final book is the We Remember, which is for older children and for people who are readers. And that's the collection of stories that families wrote and told me about. I asked them to write and about people who died on September 11th. And I wanted them to concentrate on the growing up years, not babyhood, but as they were in middle and high school and college, and when they finally went off to work, what they were like and what their personalities were. And there were so many, things that are common, even though many of these people worked in different, they were firefighters, they were people on the airplanes, they were, corporate people, but they had a common bond of being very interested in being successful, very driven by their goals, having solid families, having people who love them, and sometimes getting into trouble, but that was, part of growing up. And I wanted the kids to know that, when you grow up, there's struggles. You're not perfect. You make a lot of mistakes. That's what you're supposed to do growing up. But if you have a solid, you know, support system, you grow up to be just a wonderful human being. So
I think it's part of being a young man, particularly of Christopher's era, that you're a little wild. You
that's
want,
right.
you're a troublemaker. You're a little wise guy at times. I mean, my mom's last words to me were, "Your father and I were very hard on you because we were concerned about how you might turn out." And she said, "You turned out just fine."
That's right. And you
Um,
did.
Thank you, thank you. But I think that's just part. Maybe it's an era. Maybe it was, we didn't have all the video games, but I was, getting into trouble and yelled at and slapped by the priests and nuns all the time, and it was just part of it. It didn't mean you were a bad kid. It just meant you were a
No,
spirited kid who really couldn't sit still in school all day.
that's right.
That's part of it also.
Yeah, that's, but you want kids to know that they're not bad. You
Right.
want to know that this is the process of growing up and that
Exactly.
you do make mistakes. But
Yeah.
if you're smart, you learn from those mistakes and you try not to make them again, and I don't know whether we have that. We've gone from, parents being in charge and being the rule. And my mother said, we're not doing it. We didn't do it. There was no question, to parents wanting to be the friend. And you can't be a friend if you're a parent. You have
Yeah.
to be the person in charge. So
Yeah.
that's another issue
No,
all
it's a good
together.
lesson. It's a good lesson. I think kids are too coddled today. I think parents want to do everything for them. They want to see that they don't fail. And you need to fail. You need to go flat on your face from time to time
Right.
and pick yourself up. And your parents will be there as needed,
That's
but
right.
this is your life. And I think a lot of the values that we had in the past need to be reiterated for the future generations. I think that's what Charlie Kirk was doing,
Yes.
which is why his loss is felt so keenly as well. Talk to us about the school named in Christopher's honor.
All right. Well, after September 11th, a school was being built in
Mhm.
Jackson Heights, and I had worked as a teacher. My mother had worked as a teacher. My two daughters had worked as teachers, and Christopher worked as a teacher in the same school district.
Wow.
And so the superintendent called us and after 9/11, and he said, there is no other family in the history of this district that has had this many educators who have served the city. And we wanted to honor, somebody from September 11th, and we're asking if you would like Christopher to be the person now. We were very honored that he decided, to do that. And of course, we said yes. And the level of the school was Christopher's favorite level, which was early childhood. because he got to play, he got to talk,
Yeah.
he got to, you know what I mean? When he got up into the other grades, he was supposed to be quiet, he was supposed to fold his hands, he was supposed to sit in the chair. But in early childhood, he could get up and move around. And so it was, we all said, well, this is where the school should be, with an early childhood program, because this is, so we have in the school, we have a cabinet that was made by one of the teachers' fathers, who was a cabinet maker. We got another uniform from the fire department, and a helmet and boots, and we put in his favorite toys and his favorite books, so that the kids would be able to relate to the fact that he was a little boy at one time, and that, he had, and the school is a special school. They have great knowledge. This is a school that talks about 9/11, contrary to a lot of other schools, because of course it's named after, a firefighter. But all the teachers have the books, and all the teachers talk about, September 11th. And it really is a wonderful, wonderful place, and great, great educators. My two grandsons went there, and well, actually three grandchildren, the granddaughter as well. And so it is a great, great school. And you would hope that this would be a model. You know what I mean? My hope was that this would be a model and more people would talk, but they have not, you know, principals have said, well, it's too difficult for the children to hear the message. And I think, well, with all the violence on the video games,
Right,
this
right.
pales in comparison, even though it was a catastrophic event. So it hasn't happened. And I've written and I've spoken to every politician in New York State, and written to all the governors, and nobody has picked this up. Nobody. So I'm hoping that 24 years now, we
Yeah.
will get a movement started. And I'm also very glad that President Trump is, thinking about making this memorial site a national park, which is what it should be, because the 9/11, site in New York City is a private memorial. It's owned by the Port Authority in the city of New York, which it should never be, you
Right.
know. Kathy Hochul came out and said, well, it belongs to the citizens of New York City. No, it doesn't. It belongs to the nation, because everybody came to help from across the
Yeah.
nation. There were 200 companies that had citizens from other countries who died in 9/11. So it belongs to the world. It
Yeah.
belongs to the world, And so these individuals are sometimes not telling the truth.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. Well, she's a hard person to track. You never know where she's going to be on the political spectrum,
Absolutely.
that's for sure. I think a pure opportunist is
Absolutely. Yes, I
all
agree.
that's in her veins. Hopefully, President Trump picks up the mantle and pushes to have a national curriculum implemented in schools across the nation. I think that would be great. It's shocking that it's not. It really is. It's just mind-blowing that it's not. And you and I were, musing before about the fact that people seem to have forgotten the lessons of 9/11. Well, this is why we're not teaching it. A large percentage of people were very young or not even born,
That's
and they're
right.
of voting age now,
That's correct.
you know?
Correct. And that's how a Mandami can be in contention. That's how
Yeah.
he can be in contention, because they don't have the facts and they don't understand. They don't understand.
Exactly, exactly. And Curtis Sliwa is a man who has dedicated his life to law and order and
Absolutely.
justice, and he doesn't seem to get a fair shake from the media.
I'll leave it
So we'll
at
give
that.
him a shout out right here. If you care about
Good.
America, if you care about New York City, if you don't want it going down the tubes, people forget that Rudolph Giuliani created a miracle in New York City. I couldn't believe the difference. I'd been out of town on the road as a news reporter and anchor, and I came back to New York after Giuliani was mayor. I was like, these are parks that nobody ever went into.
That's right.
Times Square was beautiful and clean. You
That's
felt
right.
safe walking down the street, but that's because you had a tough man as mayor,
That's
you
right.
know? And then, Bloomberg was smart enough to carry through. And then now de Blasio made a mess of it, but I think it took a little while to unravel.
Yeah.
Eric
Yeah.
Adams has been, getting rich.
Yeah.
And now we've got Mandami. I mean, I really do think that's like a final nail in the coffin. I mean,
I agree. I really, really, every day I say, oh, I hope a miracle occurs. And I have been very critical of the Republican Party for not pushing Sliwa into the forefront, but the press is not covering him. They're not
yeah,
covering him at all. And he's definitely a law and order person. He has
right.
proven that since the late 70s when
Yeah.
he started the Guardian Angels, and
Yeah.
he's a good guy. So he's got my vote and got my support, so
Yeah, same here, same here. He's a good man, he's an honest man, and he knows about gun violence personally
absolutely.
because he was attacked as well. Um, when I was doing my research today for this for our interview, it said that this was Christopher's first fire. Was that correct? Or his
Well, it
first
was
major fire?
it was his first major fire.
That's what I was going to say because I figured there's smaller fires. He must
Yeah,
have
he had
responded
small,
to them as
in
well.
his area, he's in the Times Square area. So they
Yeah.
have a lot of elevator problems and heating and overheating and like gas stove, but no major. This was his first major fire. So, this was, the way fate, played itself out,
God
and
needed him near him for some reason that we don't understand, no doubt. You have plans for next year? It's the 25th
well, we're
anniversary.
probably, my hope is that if President Trump does not announce prior to, the 25th anniversary, that this is a national site, that he'll do it on the 25th.
Yeah.
And my hope is that he comes down. And so we're planning to go downtown first and then go to the firehouse because I have fought for this for years and years and years, that this become a true national memorial site owned by the federal government. And so that's what our plans are now. We probably, will go down. My daughter who lives in Texas is coming up for the 25th with her family. So we will have the whole family together, which will be very, very nice. And I'm sure, that all the people who have been silent on all these issues will come out and say how much they support 9/11, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Which will be amusing to me because they've had the opportunity all these years to do something, and even with there's the droga bill, which has to be refunded every year, where you
Mm.
have all these people who have died, they don't have the funds to pay for their health care. That's outrageous. That's
Yeah.
outrageous. So we'll have to see what the politicians are going to do, but we're intending to go down to the site next year and be down, for the reading of the names and everything,
Yeah.
so.
Well, thank God President Trump is in office during
Oh,
this.
thank
You know, can you
goodness.
imagine if Joe Biden was president
I
during this
can't, I
time?
can't, I can't
I mean,
imagine. Or
yeah.
Kamala Harris.
Or
Well,
Kamala Harris. Yeah, even worse. We dodged a bullet there
we
when
certainly,
President Trump dodged a bullet on, I think that was like September 14th last year, right?
right, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today, talking to us about Christopher's legacy. Thank you for keeping his memory alive. Thanks for educating future generations and current generations about the role of sacrifice, of duty, of obligation, and of faith. And Christopher embodied all of those values. We lost him too soon, but through his school, through your scholarship fund, through your books, his memory lives on and he continues to inspire future generations, as do you, Maureen. So thank you so much for joining me
Thank
here
you so
today.
much. It was wonderful being on with you again.
Always a pleasure talking to you. The one reason I look forward to September now, when I get to chat with you. So thank you so much. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford for the Global Book Network. So long for now. And don't forget to pick up Maureen's wonderful books. The links are below this interview.